Welcome, everyone, to our Week 9 Football Officials Education video. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed Week 8's video. Last week, at the end of Week 8, had a play involving a potential pop-up kick, and there was some great discussion on that in the comments. Well, this week, I'm going to open up with several kickoffs, and we're going to take a look at some different things on the kickoff so that we can discuss those this week. So let's get into play one. As we get into play one for this week, we are going to look at a pop-up kick on this play. And remember, if this is a pop-up kick, we put our marker down and shut the play down. It is not a live ball foul. We shut the play down. Now, as we look at this, you have to be able to officiate it. You've got to really focus on this. You'll see the kicker. We'll take a close-up look. The kicker hits more on the top of the ball, which drives the ball down into the ground. And then you can see the ball directly go back up into the air. And this ball goes pretty high. It's hard to judge how high, but it's clearly above head high here. And this is exactly why the rule is in place, as you can see here. And so this is not easy for the back judge to officiate. In this case, the back judge is on the 40-yard line because it's also looking for offsides, but also the kick. But we really have to focus on it to be able to get it. But also, this ball will not take that type of a reaction if it's not kicked off the ground. I can tell you that. For it to go bounding up in the air this direction with the power of his leg swinging like this, the only way for it to do that is to drive it into the ground. You can see right here, you can see the ball a little bit below his foot. It's blurry. He hits on top of the ball and immediately drives it into the ground, and then it bounds up. So officials that are on that kicking team line, you got to really pay attention to this and be ready for this and be alert to be able to get this. Play two here, we're going to see basically a little like pooch kick down here. It's going to come down and land just inside the 30. It bounces and then it goes near the sideline. Ball's touched. And so as we come back and break this play back down again, a couple of things here. So first, we need to know on this play that the time of the clock is 1:35. And you'll see how that's relevant on a play like this. So we need to know the time on the clock before the play begins, because we know on a kickoff, the clock doesn't start until R touches it. Now, right here, we see the ball has went 10 yards and it bounces, but the R player doesn't touch it or possess it. It bounces. It's been grounded. And so we have a loose ball that is still a kick. And we need to know the status of the ball. Then we see a K player come down and tries to get possession of the ball, but doesn't. Not even sure he touches it. But if K player would get possession, remember, that would be a play would be over. The ball would be K's ball there because he cannot advance. Only R can advance this free kick. Then next up on this play, we need to focus right here on this block right around the 33-yard line. And it's important to know that because of Rule 9, Section 6, illegal participation, if a player on a kick here, if the K player is blocked out of bounds, then they need to return at the first opportunity. But if they intentionally go out of bounds and come back in, then we would have illegal participation. But as we can see here, this player is blocked out of bounds. And it's important to know that, because otherwise we may have illegal participation. And that same player then looks like falls on live ball in bounds around the 30-yard line. And so that player didn't have an opportunity or first opportunity to return except for right there. So I wouldn't call that illegal participation. But if that player is out of bounds and falls on that ball, then we got to say what put the ball out of bounds. And so we got to rule on that. Now, the other part here is you'll see our line judge coming down. He's right there just inside the 35, giving the stop the clock signal at 1:35. And then as it proceeds downfield, we go to 1:34. For whatever reason, the clock operator did take 1 second off the clock. But we get a marker down on the field here by the line judge at the 30-yard line for a kick out of bounds. And so, what are the options for the receiving team? Well, they could go to the previous spot, walk off 5 and re-kick, or they could take the ball 25 yards in advance, or add on 5 yards from the succeeding spot, the out of bounds. Both those would be the same thing at the 35 in this case. So, lot to process on this play. Play three, going to involve another kickoff here. And I want to point out the fact that this kickoff is taking place at or from the 35-yard line, not the traditional normal 40-yard line. And that's important because we tend to get in a habit of saying, coach, do you want the ball at the 35-yard line? But in reality, the actual enforcement spot on a kick out of bounds is 25 yards in advance of the kickoff spot. And in this case, that would be the 40-yard line. And I've seen the ball put on the 35-yard line when it should not have been put on the 35-yard line because that wasn't 25 yards in advance. So kind of get in that habit to know that it's 25 yards in advance and present it that way so that you get accustomed to that. And that way you avoid that situation where you maybe potentially your crew puts the ball in the wrong spot. Now, on this play, we're going to see the kicker kind of give a little short pooch kick here. It's going to come down and land around the 36, and then you see it right around the 32 going out of bounds here. So I'm going to say this ball went out of bounds somewhere around the 33, 34 without looking down the line. So that's our enforcement spot. If you take 5 yards from the succeeding spot, let's say it's the 34, would go to the 39. Or obviously the coach can move the ball back 5 yards in the previous spot and we re-kick. And we get a marker out here by our official. And so if the coach is going to take this ball 25 yards in advance, the spot on this out of bounds play would be the 40-yard line, as I have indicated. So that's why it's important that we kind of present it to ourselves that we're looking for 25 yards in advance of the kickoff spot to put the ball, because I have seen many times the ball put on the 35 when that was the incorrect spot based upon the 25 yards in advance of the kickoff spot. Play four, I always like recognizing good off ball, dead ball officiating, good hustle. On this play, we're going to have a run to the head linesman's side of the field. And we're going to recognize our referee here. Right here, where I have the arrow, there are two opponents right in front of the opponent's team bench. They're engaged behind the play here. And our referee, I've highlighted inside a circle, is already starting to hustle that way because he recognizes it and is working his way over there. And you can see he hustles over there, and those two players disappear behind the team bench. So we have a potential situation here with a ball that's, 14, 15 yards upfield. We have the referee back here, though, recognizes it, does a good job getting in there, getting in the team bench, and potentially preventing something. So great work here. Good recognition on this play by the referee. Play five this week, we're going to look at a pass play that goes to the head linesman's side of the field. And we're going to talk about 5-person mechanics and where we officiate on a pass play like this play. And all the officials' responsibilities are keys. And we know with a right-handed quarterback on this play, the referee would be on the line judge's side of the field prior to the snap. And we know by our mechanics manual that our referee would be looking at the opposite side tackle that I have indicated here by the arrow. And so the referee is looking at a diagonal away from the line judge. And this will come important as you'll see here shortly as we discuss this play further and take a look at it. So we know our umpire by the mechanics manual will be looking at the center and the two guards. So his umpire's focus will be here in the middle of the field and watching the legality of these blocks. And then our back judge has the widest receiver on the strong side. And in this case, we have 2 wideouts on the head linesman side of the field and only 1 on the line judge. So the strong side is declared to the head linesman's side of the field. And that will give our back judge focus on that side. Our head linesman will key on the inside wide out, and then this back who looks like he's behind the line of scrimmage, leaving our line judge down here to focus on the widest receiver or the only receiver on the line judge side of the field. The other key point out here is notice how the defensive player is up close to our offensive player. So by this press type coverage, we know we're going to have probably immediate contact, and the line judge will need to rule on that immediate contact for legality of it. Also, notice we have the sideline nearby, so the line judge has to be aware of the sideline in the contact by these two players. As compared to if we look across the field, we can see a 5 to 6 yard buffer. So we know there won't be immediate contact. So there'll be a delay before those two players make contact potentially. And that does change how we officiate it. So as we look right here, we're going to take a look at these two players, the right tackle and this defensive player in red, number 44. And we're going to look at this block by the right tackle on this play. And you're going to see right here, grabs and pulls the defensive player down. And then we have a completed pass downfield on the headlinesman side of the field. But let's come back to that block and discuss some things here. So as we can see, as the snap occurs, we can see the contact already on the wideout on the line judge side of the field. And our line judge needs to be aware of that contact. Is it legal? Is there holding? Does that receiver go out of bounds? Is he forced out of bounds? We need to know those types of things. But at the same time, we have that block by the right tackle occurring where he grabs the defensive player's jersey here, and then you'll see him snap him down, which is a hold. But how do we officiate this in a 5-person crew? Because the line judge would have to still be seeing this play at the bottom between the defensive back and the wideout going down to sideline, but also be looking back at the blocking. Or does the umpire pick this up? Does the referee pick this up? This is really a difficult block to see potentially, because it's really not truly indicated of who's going to be looking at this at the time it occurs when that's snap down, dragging that player down or snapping that player down. You have in a 5-person crew kind of a gap here. I guess we just do the best we can, but it's just something to discuss and talk about in your pre-games of how we're going to pick this up. And if we saw this somewhere else, we should obviously put a marker down in the field for holding on this play. Good topic for discussion, good play to look at. Play 6 this week, we're going to take a look at forward progress and spotting on the run. And as we look at this play, we're going to see the player looks like goes down at the 40, and then we end up stopping the clock and moving the chains for a first down, which was the 42. As I have indicated here, the line to gain looks like to be the 42 based upon the area of the front stake here. So as we take another look at this play and break it down, and we're not always going to get our forward progress spots exact, but we need to do a good job of getting them close. We look right here, we can see that the player, the runner, backside butt basically goes down on the 40-yard line. So the ball would be on the 40 or, one side or the other side of the 40. But as we just saw on this play, even though the player's down at the 40, we can see the player roll forward. Now, the player does not get that roll forward to the 41, it looks like. And then as our line judge comes down here, we see him stopping the clock on this, which if we have a first down, that's the correct mechanics to stop the clock to move the chains. But in this case, based upon this, I'm not sure that we have the first down, even where he's potentially standing. And now our head linesman's standing mirroring him, and we do mirror. And obviously the head linesman doesn't have the exact spot as mirroring the line judge. Doesn't mean it's exact, but based upon this, we somehow end up going, looks like from the 41 and spotting the ball in the 42. And so potentially we look like we add 2 yards onto the actual forward progress spot here to get end up with a first down here. So just be aware when that player goes down, wherever they're down at, that's the spot. They don't get roll or anything like that, additional progress on these plays. Play 7 this week is a good play to talk about. And our focus will be here on the highlighted area. And as this plays out, I want you to look at it. And I'm going to read just something, a definition in Rule 2, passing. Section 31 states a forward pass is a pass thrown with its initial direction toward the opponent's end line. So we've seen this play out. Now let's come back and take a second look on this play. Take a second look at this play. We break it down. Obviously, I pointed out our focus, and a referee should be ready for this. Our headlines and line judge could actually get this potentially too. And we know by Rule 7 that we only can have one forward pass may be thrown during a down. It states a second or subsequent forward pass or passes thrown during a down is a foul, 5-yard penalty, and also includes a loss of down. And so as we look at this play as officials, we have to be ready, prepared for this situation. This can catch you off guard, and we see the quarterback here basically shuffle pass or flip the ball forward. So that's our first pass, first forward pass by definition, and we know we can only have one on a play. And so as our running back comes towards the line judge side of the field here, we're going to see our running back make, by definition, a second forward pass. So we would obviously have a marker down here for an illegal forward pass because it would be our second forward pass. We can see a significant gain in this play and a good job by our officials coming down and covering it and obviously stopping the clock before we get to the spot of the foul. But I want to come back and look at this play a second time. And we're going to talk about something else I noticed on this play, and specifically see if you picked up on this too, potentially, and it occurs on the headlinesman's side of the field. So let's take a look at that more closely. So our focus now will be the ball. The ball's on the 34-yard line, and we're going to focus on that defensive player here who's going to get blocked by offensive players. And we know the pass interference restrictions on a legal forward pass begin for A with a snap. And it's important to know, but we could definitely have a penalty marker down here on this play. So as you see the two offensive players here in the end begin to block that defensive player, they're going to push that defensive player and block him clean down to close to the 40, around the 39-yard line. And now I know, I said we would have to have a legal forward pass, but let's just say we did have a legal forward pass. A marker down here for offensive pass interference is easily supported on this play because these offensive players are definitely impeding the defensive player's ability to make any play during this play. So we're going to definitely support that. Now, if we did have a marker down and we also had a marker down for the second pass, which was illegal forward pass, then we would obviously pick up the offensive pass interference marker because we can't have offensive pass interference when we have an illegal forward pass, which we do in this case. But be ready to officiate these types of plays. Be alert for that second forward pass, this type of shuffle forward, and also be alert of our offensive players blocking downfield on a pass. Play 8, we're going to look at a punt. Our focus will end up being on the punter here, but we're also keep an eye on this outside defensive player here on the left side of the line. And what we're going to have is we're going to have that defensive player make contact with the ball, a block basically on this play of the punt. And it's important that we know that. And you can see here, our referee, I love good signals and mechanics, and it's really good here that the referee gives our tipped ball signal because he's communicating to everybody, the crew, the coaches, and everybody that he has a ball that is blocked or tipped by the defensive player. And that makes a difference because if somebody didn't see that and you see the contact on the punter, then you may have somebody saying, hey, we have roughing or running into the kicker. Well, in this case, by the referee giving that signal, we're clearly indicating, yes, we saw the tip of the ball, the block, and we do not have running into or roughing the kicker. So giving good signals like this is really important. Good job here by our referee by doing that. And that's a good communication tool, and it looks good. Play 9 involves another punt play. Our focus will be on the punter and this defensive player on the line judge's side of the field. And we're going to have contact on the punter here. And then we'll come back and break this play down, slow it down, and we'll actually do a close-up look at the play. But take a look at this contact first and determine if you would have a foul or not, and then we'll come back and discuss the play after we look at the play in actual live time here. All right, let's go back and look at the play. So we come back to this play. We're going to take a close-up look, and I'm being honest. This is a hard play, somewhat to officiate, and it's challenging, especially for the referee. And as we see here, we're going to see the defensive player come in, and there's going to be contact here by the offensive player. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, does this contact and block by the offensive player, and you can see his arm raise up and his forearm shove or push the defensive player into the punter, kicker? And if that's the case, if we rule that is, then obviously that contact or that shove by the offensive player, we wouldn't have running into a roughing the kicker. But the key here is the referee's in the proper position on the right side, kicking leg side. Does the referee see that? Um, and if not, I don't know if I was on this game, if I would have seen that, I probably had a marker down for running into the kicker. But then again, if I have that information, and who can give me that information, most likely the referee is going to have to see it. I don't think he's going to get much help from the other crew because of a 5-person crew. We have so many areas of responsibility, but potentially maybe another official did possibly see that and give that information that, yes, I have the blocker pushed the defensive player in. And one of the things that kind of helps on this play, if you look at it, see how the defensive player gets turned and he actually goes into the kicker with his backside. That's kind of a somewhat of a criteria you can use that type of information to determine, because most likely most defensive players are going to run into a kicker, are going to rough a kicker, are going to go in straight forward. Now, I'm not saying that's the only criteria you want to use. This is a tough play, but if we see this block, we have to determine, is that block, is that, push is what drives the defensive player into the punter or not. It's tough to rule on, especially in a 5-person crew. Do your best on these plays, but be alert for them. Play 10 this week is going to involve 2 plays in as we get into the end of the season here and where playoffs matter and everything. These are 2 good plays to illustrate quality and great mechanics that we need to put forth during plays involving the sideline. So our first play here, we're going to see number 7 on the headlinesman side of the field catch the ball. He makes progress up to the 39, gets pushed back to the 40, and you can see the headlinesman coming down the field, giving the clock signal. And you could say, well, he went out of bounds. Yes, but notice how our headlinesman is giving the spot at the 39. And if you come back here and break it down, you're going to see the runner number 7 get to the 39 and then get contacted and goes pushed backwards and actually goes out of bounds behind the forward progress spot. So this is a good job here, good mechanics. We're given to wind the clock signal when we should. Appropriately officiated. Good job here. We can see our line judge at the bottom mirroring that spot. Great way to officiate that play. Great forward progress spot. Great wind. Good job. Now, we're going to come back and look at the second play in this series here, where we're going to see another good job here. And we pick up the play. It's already been snapped, but it's a good play to illustrate. We're going to see another pass play, almost a similar play out to number 7, goes forward out of bounds. And we can see, first of all, our head linesman already stopping the clock 6-7 yards behind the play, but giving the stop clock, not winding, giving the stop the clock signal because the play went out of bounds. Then comes up to the spot, rules on forward progress, which is the out of bounds spot. And this is a good job here. We see our line judge coming up, mirroring it. But the important thing here is we rule this out of bounds. We give the stop the clock signal long before we get to the spot. And remember, in these games upcoming with playoffs, a few 2 weeks away and so forth, in these close games, we want to do the correct thing. We want to do the right thing and get that clock stopped as our headlinesman does here and get a forward progress spot after that and not wind the clock on these plays. Thanks everyone again for taking your time out of your schedule to watch this week's video. I hope the plays in this week's video are helpful to you in officiating your upcoming and future games. Best of luck in this week's games. And until next time, next week for our next week's video, take care. Have a great game.